Never been huge on westerns, but this was such a well done western, I have to say, and the addition of the fantasy elements definitely makes it just kind of a cool idea. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to be talking about Shadow of Wolves by J.R. White. This is the first in the Kit Barker novel series. And yeah, this is a straight up western, but as you can see from the cover, it involves a werewolf, and it's just kind of like a werewolf type situation put in a very much a sort of a western thing. And I was not really sure what to expect with this because I'm not super well read by any means in westerns, and I know that fantasy westerns were kind of a somewhat popular thing, at least in the indie scene for a little bit. And those I feel like tended to be a little bit more so on the fantasy side, whereas this is firmly in like the actual western type of thing. Like, this is our world in the Old West in America. The main character, Kit Barker, he fought in the Civil War, like that type of thing. Like the setup there, a lot of the ideas are very much rooted in what a western feels like it should be. And then the idea of the werewolf, which we find out kind of more as we go along. It's kind of a mystery. They're not really sure what's happening. They don't think it's going to be a werewolf by any means, being it real, but it's kind of woven in the mythos setup, and I think is handled really well. This was actually gifted to me by Mike Molman. He gifted me the audiobook for this a while back, and so it took me a while to get to it. And it was I'm like, I needed to find the right time for it, and I was in the mood to do something totally different. I didn't originally plan on getting this in April, but I swapped it out for a different book that I just wasn't feeling. I needed a prompt, something that was gifted to me, and I'm like, I have this western, and this was kind of the perfect time for me, just doing something totally different. But like I said, and I'm not super well read on like the western side, so take it with a grain of salt. But I do feel like those elements worked really well here. So Kit Barker is kind of he's the gunslinger type of character. He's got a reputation. He's very dangerous. Like, he's the fast gun type of character as well. And then we have another character who's a Navajo, and is kind of like lives on like the fringes of some of these like western towns. We have kind of the greenhorn character who is just the kid, doesn't really know a whole lot of what's going on. And so a lot of those types of setup, we end up, most of this takes place in a silver mining town where the guy who the mayor or the overseer type of guy has like secrets, and is really stern. And so it just has a lot of those tropes I feel like you would expect, but all of it felt really, really genuine, I guess. Like, the characters had a lot of depth to them, which I appreciated. And so you felt like no matter which one you were looking at, there was just a lot of this background that existed. It felt like it had weight. It didn't feel like we're just seeing these characters go up and that they're, this just a figment that's being created. It really felt like, oh no, these are characters. This is a real western town. And so I feel like the author did a really great job of having it feel like it had that depth and had the complexity and the history. And just, even though it's playing around with a lot of the common western tropes, then adding in some pretty detailed mythos with the type of the werewolf. So what they do with that, and there's some excerpts from a book about Peter Stube, which apparently is a completely real book, although he changed around some of it, he said. And so that, I will say, tends to be a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when you have in the book characters that are reading a book. So it's always iffy if that'll work. I actually just complained about that in a different book that I read in April, but here it was kind of just like these excerpts, and we were finding out about it, and it was used to kind of show you the background of some kind of like what's happening. And so I think because it set up the mythos, it didn't bother me too much, although I think there were probably some other ways that could have maybe been gone about. But it was one of those things where it's always hit or miss for me when that's done. So I figured I'd bring it up since I just got done complaining about it with something else. But I think it generally works here. I did look up too, just to see, because I was curious like what the other ones were going to be. It does look like the second book involves like some sort of like demon gunfighter or something and that type of thing. So it seems like we're going to keep that very, very western feeling, but dealing with supernatural elements. So I found that interesting too. And this is, I had some other review copy like a few years ago, I think, and it was supposed to be sort of like Western again, but with some like mystical elements, and it ended up feeling like sort of like weird episode of Doctor Who kind of thing, and like it didn't work for me at all. So I went into this with no expectations. I didn't know how well it was going to work, and I just think if you like Westerns and in fantasy, I think this is a good one to check out because it does both elements. It feels, like I said, much more on the Western side with those elements, but like there's a lot of deep character moments, some really good backstory. There's definitely some action, some bit of gore in there too. It's not like a full-on splatter Western or anything, but there's definitely some gore in there too, dealing with the werewolf and other things, as well as some humor and just that type of thing. And I think it handles both parts really well, and it's a series that I'd be interested to continue. I found it really entertaining, and I think for me, this is something that when I'm just in the mood for something really different, I will probably find myself picking up book 2 just to kind of, as a palate cleanser to try something else out. But there was a surprising amount of depth, despite having, like I said, the hallmark kind of the things you expect in a Western, a lot of those familiar elements. I think it just did them well, and it's one of those things that, tropes are tropes for a reason. You can do tropes good or you can do them bad, and there are certain tropes that, you either like or you don't like here. But I think this is where it's very much it's keeping in the Western. It's not meant to be parodying a Western or really just having some of those elements. Like this author, they're writing a Western, but they're just switching it up a little bit, and I think they do a great job. Really, though, those are my thoughts on Shadow of Wolves by J.R. White. So let me know if you happen to have read this, or what your thoughts are on Westerns with fantasy elements, that type of thing as well here too. Just because, like I said, I know there's been some others that I've heard, and most which I still haven't gotten to, that people really liked. So I'd be curious to know your thoughts on those. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.